My second video, released in January 2021, was about the Leicester and Swannington Railway, and the reason for building that line was coal. It's the same story with the Stockton and Darlington Railway, which opened 7 years earlier, also with the aim of getting coal from the collieries to other transport for sale and distribution. This soon became extremely profitable, transforming Middlesbrough from a fishing town of just 40 people into a huge industrial centre. Just like the Leicester and Swannington, it involved the Stevensons of Newcastle, the Stevensons of Glasgow, and financial support from the Quakers, who bought 1/3 of the railway before construction began. It continues to be billed as the first public railway to use steam locomotives, although the Surrey Iron Railway of 1801, the Middleton Colliery of 1812 and the Kilmarnock and Troon Railway of 1818 all offer good counter-arguments. Freight was the priority and passengers were horse-drawn for the first 8 years. By 1865, the Stockton and Darlington, along with all its competition, had been bought out and absorbed into the North Eastern Railway, giving it a monopoly in the area. The original bill had been presented to Parliament in 1819, but it was defeated by local nobility, whose land would have been required for the route. Both railways, when building their lines, said that anyone able to construct a railway to join theirs was welcome to get involved in the coal business. Edward Pease and his son Joseph went into business with George Stephenson, opening his locomotive works in Newcastle. When the first engine was ready, the opening of the line was advertised. On the opening day, 10,000 spectators in Darlington watched the first train arrive from Shildon at an average speed of 8 miles an hour. The train then continued to Stockton with 31 wagons and 550 passengers, averaging 15 miles per hour. At first there were no stations, but there were regular stopping places, some of which later became stations. Within days of the line opening, other railways such as the Tees Valley and the Clarence were being put before Parliament. On the 27th of September 1825, the Stockton and Darlington Railway opened from Old Eatherley Colliery, passing through Witton Park, along the 1 in 30 Brusselton incline to Bishop Auckland, Newton Aycliffe, Darlington, the Fighting Cocks and Yarm, before ending at Stockton, where wharves and mills were later built on the River Tees. The following year, Aycliffe Lane became a stopping point. All debts for the railway had been paid off, including 2 advances by Pease to pay the engineers and locomotive crews. A branch near Darlington was extended to Croft in 1829, stopping short of the River Tees, where an expensive crossing was planned to reach York. An extension on a new branch at St Helens was opened in 1830, reaching the Haggaleases area and allowing Rayleigh Fell Colliery to join the line. Although mining was already common in the area, the railway offered faster and cheaper transport for coal, encouraging other collieries to build their own branches. South of Darlington, an additional loop via Dinsdale gave access to the Croft branch and provided an alternative landing stage at Darlington. The line also extended eastwards through Newport to Middlesbrough, not far from where the Tees Transporter Bridge is now. Shildon, Blackboy and St Helens collieries all gained access to the railway. The Hartlepool and Dock Railway from Sunderland and central Durham was completed in 1831 after a delay at Haswell. Like the Stockton and Darlington, it opened with no stations. The Clarence Railway of 1833 also began without stations, linking Crowtree's Colliery and the Shildon Works to the north side of the Tees via Lustring Beck. A station at St Helens came in 1833. All these stations that had opened so far were not how we would class a station today, and would have been a stopping point, perhaps with a crossing keeper's house. There is still conjecture over this, as Aycliffe Lane, initially served as a public house and stopping point, is now Grade 2 star listed and recognised as likely the world's oldest railside station building. It changed its name in 1874 to Hyington. The Clarence Railway extended to Samphire Batts in 1834. A station opened here named Port Clarence, and to the north a station opened at Ferryhill. Collieries started to join the railway. Thornley, Hugh Hall, Woodhouse Close and Thrislington. Stations opened at Heselden and Sedgefield in 1835, Carlton in 1836. On the Durham and Sunderland Railway, Sherburn in 1837, as well as Haswell on the Hartlepool and Dock Railway. Coxo opened on the northern branch of the Clarence, and on the western end an extension to Todd Hill arrived in 1839, passing through Byers Green. Durham's first station, Shincliffe, opened on a branch which was rope-hauled, and the line had commenced from Town Moor Station in Sunderland. Later, on the Hartlepool and Dock, Castle Eden, Hart, and with the arrival of the Clarence competitively backed Stockton and Hartlepool Railway, Hartlepool received their first station. The Hartlepool and Dock built their own Hartlepool in 1841, which is the existing station of today, and the Stockton and Hartlepool added stations at Seaton, Greetham and Billingham. The Croft extension of the Stockton and Darlington, which faced issues crossing the Tees, was usurped by a forerunner of the Great North of England Railway, the York and Darlington, passing by Croft and opening their own station, as well as Darlington's first official station at Bank Top. This is the station extant today. Croft's older station closed and operated as a goods branch and sidings. The Bishop Auckland and Weardale opened in 1842 with a station in Bishop Auckland at South Church. The building of the Shildon Tunnel delayed the line to Crook. Meanwhile, the Clarence extended the Browns Bridge branch to the North Shore with a station at Norton Road. A station opened named Darlington, now known as North Road. The following year, Crook was reached and a branch from Whitton to Frosterley was completed as the Weardale Railway. The Great North of England pushed forward and the section between Darlington and Gateshead opened as the Newcastle and Darlington Railway, with a loop into Durham and a station at Gilesgate. Stations opened at Crook, Bradbury, Sherburn, Shincliffe and Aycliffe. Collieries were popping up fast at Bowden Close, Howden, North Beechburn and Little Chiltern. Stations were also springing up on the existing railways at Spennymoor in 1845 and also Byers Green and Beechburn. South Church closed as it had been built as a temporary station as the line extended. A joint venture between the Great North of England Railway, Clarence and Hartlepool and Dock opened in 1846, running from Spennymoor to Castle Eden as a Ferry Hill to Hartlepool service. There were many complications from the Clarence, refusing any cooperation in building it, and was quickly absorbed into the York, Newcastle and Berwick Railway. Collieries, and now quarries, were really picking up on business provided by the railways. In the lower left corner of the map passes the Lancaster and Carlisle Railway through Tebay, Shap and Clifton and Lowther. Competition was tight and the railway soon was courted by the Midland and the LNWR, who eventually absorbed the line after a 20-year lease, appeasing Lancashire and Carlisle shareholders with an annual dividend always exceeding 7.25%. The same year saw the Stockton and Darlington extend to Redcar via Middlesbrough and Lazenby, passing what would become an area heavy in industry. Coxo Bridge opened on the joint line. At Whitton, a station opened at the Weardale Railway Junction, simply named Junction. To the north, a 1 in 13 incline was constructed to gain access to Consett via Crook, and stations at Eathley and Whitton Park and Whitton-le-Weir opened. The Durham and Sunderland Railway was absorbed into the York, Newcastle and Berwick. Although the Stockton and Darlington didn't have proper stations in the beginning, the halt/freight office at Stockton closed in 1848, by which time services were passing through to Newport and on to Redcar. The building still stands. The Leeds Northern Railway ran to Browns Bridge in 1852 with a new Stockton-on-Tees station connecting with the Stockton and Darlington at Yarm and Eaglescliffe. The route ran from Northallerton, creating an East Coast mainline route via Hartlepool and Sunderland and utilising the Clarence. Ironstone had been discovered south of Middlesbrough and gave birth to the Stockton and Darlington backed Middlesbrough and Guisborough Railway in 1853, and extra income helped with the Crimean War as resources were being diverted to create weaponry. A station was opened at the end of the line at Guisborough. In 1854, the 5,000 miles of the North Eastern Railway came into being, with the amalgamation of the York, Newcastle and Berwick, which had in turn swallowed the York and Newcastle and the Newcastle and Darlington, the York and Midland, the Leeds Northern and the Malton Driffield Railway to become the only English railway with Scottish branches and assets, including the Forth Bridge. Stations on the Middlesbrough and Guisborough opened at Ormsby, Nunthorpe, Pinchingthorpe and Hutton Gate. In 1856, the North Eastern opened the Brandon to Bishop Auckland line from Durham, joining the existing line from Ferryhill and calling at their new Durham station, passing over the 76-foot tall Grade 2 star listed Durham Viaduct of 11 arches offering stunning views of the castle and cathedral. To the south, the Darlington and Barnard Castle was built, immediately becoming part of the Stockton and Darlington. Stations were provided at Piercebridge, Gainford, Winston, Broomielaw and Barnard Castle, with only a railway terrace hinting at its past. Broomielaw was a private halt for the Bowes-Lyon family until 1942. The first Shincliffe station closed. On the Brandon and Bishop line, stations at Brancepeth, Willington and Hunwick commenced service in 1857. The Hartlepool and Dock joined the North Eastern. The single-track D&S Valley Railway from Crook to Durham opened. Stanley and Brancepeth collieries joined immediately. It was built primarily for coal traffic, passenger stations added much later. Stations at Thornley on the Hartlepool and Dock and Evenwood and Lands on the Haggaleases branch opened in 1858, a year which saw the Brustleton incline officially close. Middlesbrough and Guisborough and the Darlington and Barnard's Castle absorbed into the Stockton and Darlington. An extremely short-lived station named Haggaleases opened in April 1859 and promptly closed in August. It had been served earlier with horse-drawn coaches. The station closed when peak services were 2 trains per day. Brandon Station south of Durham opened in 1861, as did the South Durham and Lancashire Union, with stations at Lartington, Bowes, Kirby Stephen East, Smaردale, Newbiggin and Gazegill, joining the LNWR at T-Bay. In the east, the NER created branches from Middlesbrough at Cargo Fleet Junction to Skinninggrove through Ironstone territory, and to Saltburn via Redcar and Marske, which closed the existing Redcar terminating branch. A branch from the north of the Brandon Junction, the Lanchester Valley Railway, was prepared for 1862, terminating at Consett. Barnard Castle got their second station, occupying what is now Carr's Billington, and the first station closed. From the LNWR, from Clifton and Lowther, sprung a further South Durham and Lancashire Union branch to Kirby Stephen East via Cleburne, Temple Sowerby, Kirkbythorpe, Appleby West, Warcop and Musgrave. The South Durham and Lancashire Union was absorbed into the Stockton and Darlington. The Stockton and Darlington had tidied the ends of the newly amalgamated line, giving access to the LNWR northwards and also an eastern portal through Bishop Auckland toward Whitton. A station near Haggaleases was opened named Cockfield. In 1863, the Stockton and Darlington became a constituent of the North Eastern Railway, thus bringing the Darlington and Barnard, Middlesbrough and Guisborough, Middlesbrough and Redcar, Wear Valley, Eden Valley and South Durham and Lancashire Union Railways to the North Eastern Railway. Evenwood Station was moved back to the junction in 1864, and stations at Lazenby and Hutton Gate on the Guisborough line closed. In 1865, the Clarence Railway was absorbed into the North Eastern, making it the largest railway company in England. Thrislington Station became active in 1866, Fawcett limestone quarry was emptied in 20 years by 200 men by hand, but the branch remained active for other quarries. Byers Green Station closed. Middleton in Teesdale was the terminating station for the Tees Valley Railway in 1868, from a branch at Lartington. Ayton Station on the Guysborough line opened. The 1 in 13 Sunnyside incline to Consett was replaced by an S-Bend branch in 1869 to create direct connections with Crook and Frosterley. Near Peterlee, a new station on the Hartlepool and Dock opened at Shotton Bridge, and on the joint line, Trimdon Station came into being, both in 1871. Croxdale on the Ferryhill to Durham line opened in 1872, and Lands on the Hagger leases closed. From Lands Viaduct came the Woodland branch, which served several quarries from 1873. It was built by the North Eastern Railway, but privately run. Aycliffe Lane, recorded as the UK's oldest continuous serving railway station, changed its name to its current title of Hyington. The Midland Railway, unable to gain access to the LNWR's tracks to Scotland, embarked on their own railway, always pushing its empire north, and with some very impressive engineering work delivered by at least 6,000 navvies, the Settle and Carlisle opened in 1875 and passed through Kirkby Stephen West, Crosby Garrett, Ormside, Appleby West and Long Martin, giving competitive access to Scotland to the North Eastern Railway. Barras Station on the Barnard Castle line opened. The Castle Eden Railway opened in 1877 from Stockton-on-Tees to Wingate. The line never went to Castle Eden and was known as the Cuckoo Line. Initially, only the station at Wingate on a branch to Ferryhill opened. Norton Junction on the Clarence and Waterhouses on the DNS opened. Byers Green's second station opened in 1878. Further calling points appeared on the Castle Eden at Herworth Barn, Wynyard and Thorpe Thewles, and Hutton Junction outside Guysborough opened. Trains from Guysborough to Whitby would have to reverse out of the branch and then head to Whitby. This arrangement never found a better solution, remaining that way until closure. St Helens became West Auckland. A station at Stillington got going in 1879 in between Carlton and Newton Aycliffe. Hutton Gate reopened in 1881 and the following year saw Wellfield Junction pop up on the Hartlepool and Dock. In 1830, Quaker and original Stockton and Darlington financier Joseph Pease had bought 500 acres of dismal swamp to create new piers for the distribution of coal, and a new port was born, named Port Darlington, and the population here exploded. To get Pease's employees to their workplace, the North Eastern Railway built South Stockton Station. The station boasted waiting rooms for 4 different classes, decorated profusely, some in William Morris carvings, and others resulting from a competition with over 100 entries from local stonemasons. Aldin Grange on the Lanchester Valley was established in 1883 and became popular for the Durham Miners' Gala in its later life. Nearby Ushaw Moor gave access to the Ushaw Catholic Priest Training College and was inaugurated in 1884 on the DNS Valley Railway. Stillington Station was resited. Byers Green's third station was opened in 1885 and nearby Cowden was instituted. Dinsdale opened a station on the Stockton and Darlington in 1887 as a replacement for Fighting Cocks, which closed to passengers but remained in use. Thrislington had a name change to West Cornforth in 1891 and Hutton Junction closed. The Todd Hill or Byers Green branch west of Byers Green closed. South Stockton changed its name to Thornaby in 1892 and remains open. Durham established its 4th station in 1893 on a branch from Sherburn to Elvit. This station is now occupied by Durham County Court. In 1900, Norton Junction became Norton-on-Tees. Eston Station commenced business in 1902 and the branch that served it was less than a mile apart and parallel to the Eston Ironstone branch. Nearby Hutton Gate closed for the second time in 1903, only to reopen 3 months later. In 1900, a train had crashed into a snowdrift here, and in the ensuing panic to clear the train, was hit from behind by another train. The Durham coastline from Middlesbrough to Newcastle via Hartlepool and Sunderland was launched in 1905. It had been a group of independent railways running short distances and acting together created a 40-mile route opening stations at Easington and Hordern. Blackhall Rocks was added in 1907. In the southeast, Newport Station closed in 1915. And in 1920, a new winding track along Billingham Beck was built from Port Clarence to Brown's Bridge, avoiding Billingham and Norton-on-Tees. Warrenby Halt opened in 1920 on a newly instated track of the old Stockton Darlington spur to Redcar. It was gaslit with wooden platforms and was built to serve Dorman Long Steel Works. The Woodland branch came to an end in 1921. The 1923 grouping only had one name change as Carlton became Red Marshall. The NER became part of the LNER. In 1927, Aldin Grange became Bear Park. Redcar East opened 1929. Collieries in the area were becoming redundant and there were many closures. The remains of the Byers Green branch was closed. Bank Top now became the main Darlington station, losing its name, and North Road became a minor station. Junction Station, which had been renamed Weir Valley Junction, was closed in 1935. As the Blackhall Rocks stations had been unsuccessful in serving the nearest village, so Blackhall Colliery opened in 1936 to serve both the mine and the village. More collieries closed with the approach of World War II, as the Brusselton incline became no longer necessary, but continued an occasional use for delivering firewood to the incline cottages. Croxdale Station on the Durham Main Line closed, and Port Clarence ceased operations in 1939. In Newton Aycliffe, two branches were opened in 1941 to serve Aycliffe Royal Ordnance Factory, named Simpasture, and Demon's Bridge, and each served either end of the factory, both entries for workers and freight. The second Shincliffe station closed. In 1943, on the original Stockton and Darlington route, Erlay Nook Halt was opened to access a Royal Navy stores depot. It was renamed to Allen's West Halt in 1944, but it never appeared on timetables until 1971 when it became a public station. Coundon Station closed in 1948 and Bradbury in 1950. Clifton and Lowther and Pinchingthorpe went in 1951, and the following year saw the loss of Gaysgill, New Biggin, Smaردale, Crosby Garrett, Musgrave, Barras, Haswell, Shotton Bridge, Thornley, Wellfield, Herworth Barn, Wynyard, Thorpe Thewles, Trimdon with Coxoe to Castle Eden closed, and also West Cornforth, Stillington and Redmarshall. The old joint line was closed, leaving access to Coxoe Quarry and Colliery and stranding Coxoe Bridge Station. Many stations were earmarked for closure before 1939, but wartime measures extended their lives. With the war over, Demon's Bridge Station went in 1953, as did Aycliffe, Temple Sowerby and Kirby Thor. Also, Durham's Elvit station ceased to be. Further closures, all 10 years before the Beeching Axe fell, continued. Sherburn and Simpasture in 1954, Clyburn in 1956, Byers Green's third station in 1958, Sherburn Colliery in 1959, Tony Blair's constituency of Sedgefield in 1960, with Norton-on-Tees and Yarm. Further stations were closed, with West Auckland, Evenwood, Cockfield, Lartington, Appleby West, Ormside, Kirby Stephen East, Bowes, and the entirety of the old South Durham and Lancashire Union, from West Auckland to T-Bay, all went in 1962. Beeching released his report in March 1963, and Hart Station closed in September, with the Simpasture branch and the Clarence from Stillington to Newton Aycliffe. Sweeping closures came in 1964. Stations at Ushaw Moor, Waterhouses, Easington, Hordern, Blackwall Colliery, Blackwall Rocks, Castle Eden, Heselden, Hartlepool, Brandon, Brancepeth, Willington, Hunwick, Hutton Gate, Guysborough, Barnard Castle, as well as the D&S line, the Bishop Auckland City route, the Guysborough branch, Fighting Cocks, and the Croft Freight branch and junction. And it didn't stop there. In 1965, Crook, Beechburn and Etherley closed, and the Crook line was cut back to Bishop Auckland, and closing the Weardale too, closing Witton-le-Weir in the process. Broomielaw, Winston, Gainford and Piercebridge rendered the Barnard Castle line obsolete to passengers. The Tees Valley to Middleton was closed. In 1966, Billingham was resited, Spennymoor and its Clarence branch closed, as well as Bear Park, Wingate, Coxhoe and Eston, and the branches of Middlesbrough to Skinninggrove and the Lanchester Valley were all lost. Being there was only one station now, Hartlepool West became simply Hartlepool. Ferryhill closed. Hartlepool Nuclear Power Plant came online in 1983, but in preparation for construction, a 1.5 mile railway was constructed in 1968 from south of Seaton. Norton Road closed. It became obsolete with the new stations at Stockton North and South, but had continued to be used by workmen's train services for the North Shore shipyard until the closure of the line. The entire Castle Eden Railway, Shap and T-Bay, the Durham to Bishop Auckland line all closed. Croft Station closed in 1969. It had been renamed in 1896 to Croft Spa due to its healing waters nearby. No such healing saved the station. Long Marton and Kirkby Stephen West went in 1970. The most northerly of all the Bomber Command airfields, RAF Middleton St George was initiated in 1941. It closed in 1964 and civilian flights commenced that same year and Teesside Airport was born. A railway station was provided in 1971 with a shuttle bus from the terminal to the station. In May 2022, the station was declared unsafe and the station owner, Teesside Airport, refused to pay for the repairs and its service has remained suspended since. It might have something to do with the fact that it has been the least used station 4 times in a row and in 2020-21 had 2 passengers. Allens West became a public station. Following the closure of Fighting Cock Station, the line remained open for some freight use and eventually as a glorified siding until the track was lifted in the 1970s. In 1976, Gypsy Lane Station opened in an area where housing was being developed. British Rail had expected a footfall of 150 a day, which has not yet been realised, though the station has been linked with the failed Tees Valley Metro scheme, which also proposed the reinstatement of the Castle Eden Railway. British Steel Redcar created a station on the realigned route to Redcar in 1978, closing Warrenby Halt in the process. It too has featured as a least used station with 40 passengers in 2017-18, shortly before its closure. Newton Aycliffe opened a station on the original Stockton and Darlington. It had over 77,000 passengers in 2023-24. In 1981, Ormsby changed its name to Marton. One of the few remaining stations, Coxhoe Bridge, closed in 1984. It had been kept open on a line serving Coxhoe Quarry. A single line from South Hetton Colliery was kept open to access Hartlepool Dock until just before the miners' strike. Shildon Wagon Works' 150-year history was ended in June and the connection to the railway severed. Another station mentioned in the Tees Valley Metro scheme is Longbeck, which was opened in 1985 by British Rail. Its footfall is over 55,000. Kirkby Stephen, formerly West, reopened as part of the reinstatement of the Settle and Carlisle Railway. In 1987, the last freight train ran on the Eden Valley Railway and Warkop, and the line were closed. Greetham Station was closed in 1991. In 1996, Yarm Station was resited, albeit over a mile from the original, which had closed 36 years earlier. So is it the same station? Some sources think so. The Leamside line connecting Ferry Hill through Shincliffe and past Durham was the original East Coast mainline route, but Durham became a permanent fixture and now all trains go through it. This line was closed in 1999. Warkop Station was the last to close on the Eden Valley Railway, and following formation of the Eden Valley Railway Society in 1995, the first train left Warkop to Sandford in 2006. The Weardale Heritage Railway, which had been formed in 1993 and reopened between Walsingham and Stanhope in 2004, extended to Bishop Auckland via Whitton le Weir in 2010. The Eden Valley Railway Society hopes to be running the 10 miles from Kirkby Stephen to Appleby in the future by joining up with the Stainmore Railway, who also have a heritage centre at the reopened Kirkby Stephen, with a third of a mile of track which began operations in 2011. James Cook University Hospital had been discussing a railway station for some time, and with the advent of the previously mentioned and abandoned Tees Valley Metro project, the station was opened on the 18th of July 2014. Whitton le Weir reopened for the third time in 2016 as part of the Weardale Heritage Railway. British Steel Redcar was closed in 2019. Given its proximity to Peterlee, Hordern Station on the Durham coastline was reopened in 2020, giving 61,000 people transport access to employment opportunities in the area. The station was one site of 7 chosen by Durham County Council. Since 2022, services from Teesside Airport Station have been suspended after the station platforms were declared unsafe. Hartlepool Nuclear Power Plant is coming to the end of its life. It was originally planned to shut down in 2009, then again in 2014, and again in 2019, and again in 2024, and again in 2025, with an expected decommissioning in 2026, though EDF now say 2027. A proposal has been made in 2009 that a new plant could be built here with a lifespan of 60 years, and approval was given with reactors capable of generating 1,800 megawatts each at a cost of $6 billion, employing 3,000 people during the 8-year construction and 600 people throughout its life. The decision to build or not will come in 2026. Was the Stockton and Darlington Railway the first railway? No. According to Anthony Coulis of the National Railway Museum, Coulis explained that the Stockton and Darlington was not the first railway and was quickly overshadowed. However, it demonstrated the practicality of steam locomotives, pulling trains over long distances, and laid the foundation for the modern railway system. Niall Hammond, chair of the Stockton and Darlington Railway Friends Group, acknowledged the existence of railway enthusiasts, but argued that the railway system itself had a transformative impact in the world. In 2021, Darlington's mayor at the time, Chris McEwen, emphasised the significance of the railway's achievements, stating that they had a unique and transformative impact on the world. As usual, I look forward to all your comments, particularly regarding my pronunciations of all the towns and villages in the area, many of which I've definitely got wrong, and any mistakes on the map. Looking forward to seeing you for the next video.